Hi, I'm Kelly Marie El Capitan Michael.
And I'm Ben Mouse Stewart.
And we're the students of Wollongong Organised Recreational Debating Society.
Swords.
Yeah. And welcome to our very first episode of On the Fence, the show where we debate the news.
And this week we're coming to you from Building 24 on the UOW campus. This is going to be the fortnightly show brought to you by the UOW Debating Society, where we slice and dice some of the major news headlines over the past couple of weeks.
And from that we're going to draw one big story, one big contentious issue, or the double-edged sword.
And we're going to see how debate would manifest itself in this issue.
And take a look at what both sides are saying.
And then we're going to get your opinion, and get word from the man
or woman
on the street.
And at the end of every episode, hopefully we should be able to decide whether we're AF,
neg,
or on the fence.
And after that, it's just up to the adjudicators. And right now we're going to be bringing you the major news stories from the past couple of weeks, or as we like to call it,
the
cutting edge news.
And this episode's cuttings from the newsroom floor. Early last year, the United States ordered an aerial strike in Libya to protect civilians from the Gaddafi regime when it became apparent that it was ordering mass civilian slaughter across the Middle Eastern country. Concerns are now growing in nearby Syria as what started as unexpected attacks on civilians has given rise to rebel forces in Damascus attempting to overthrow the Bashar al-Assad government. The situation has now escalated to conflict in Damascus and Aleppo, and Syria is now in a state of civil war, prompting debate as to why American and British peacekeeping forces have not once again intervened. Is it their responsibility? And why is it an assumed right of Western nations to dictate what force is needed in the developing world? Meanwhile, the continuing effects of the global financial crises are being felt in Europe. The Greek and Italian governments are still heavily in debt, and there is rising social pressure against governments to propose austerity measures. While the German government still endorses austerity, the recent French presidential election saw François Hollande, a left-wing president, speaking out against strict austerity, elected. The Greek government, most heavily in debt, has also elected a coalition of left-wing parties, prompting a worldwide watch on the financial security of the Eurozone. And finally, here in Australia, the country counted down to the implementation of the carbon tax at the start of the financial year. While the ground has not yet fallen beneath our feet, some companies have already been called for unfairly raising prices, and the long-term effects of this tax are still to reveal themselves. The Liberal Party maintains its commitment to abolish the tax if elected, so the upcoming election will be one to watch. So this brings us to the double-edged sword. This is a segment where one major issue from the news in the last couple of weeks is up for debate, and this week we're on the fence about
Vote people. Vote people. The big story, which has been sweeping the nation the past couple of weeks, has seen the government show unusual displays of bipartisanship as both sides are desperate to get something through. We've seen escalating amounts of drowning, and it looks like the problem isn't fixing itself. Because this issue has to be fixed, it has to be debated. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be talking about in this double-edged sword
is what sort of topics will we be looking at?
That's right.
Kind of arising from this. So.
Yeah. Obviously the classic is that we should stop the debates. I think it'd be safe to say most of the topics will be should debates. They'll be about policy. They'll be about there's a problem. How do we fix it? You might get other topics like onshore processing versus offshore processing.
We hope for your sake that you don't get into what the government is currently debating as to whether we should do offshore processing at Malaysia or Nauru.
Although having said that, you still might get a topic very more specific like onshore processing in Malaysia. Like you can get specific debates like that. So just be prepared for all of them.
But anyway, let's assume for the moment that the topic that you may be looking at is most likely going to be that we should stop the boats. We're going to look at what sort of definitions you might do for the topic and what kind of traps not to fall into for definitions. So definitely the big one is stopping the boats as a topic. Should definitely, and we think the key topic on this is definitely going to be about the drownings, and definitely about the horrific conditions on boats.
That's what's been in the news.
As an AF team, you should definitely focus on your definition as stop the boats as being stopping, the literal boats, the things that float on the water and the people go in them and they drown.
Yeah, because you don't want to get screwed by the negative team who comes up and starts arguing as if stopping the boats means stopping asylum seekers altogether. Yeah. Because whilst I have no doubt a team will try this, but it's really just quite unfair. Yeah. If you're looking at from the AF side of you that we should stop the boats, this is like the linchpin of your argument. You need to push the fact that as long as there are boats, there are drownings. As long as there are drownings, that's unacceptable.
And not only just people drowning, but it is not the most comfortable way to travel. I mean, you've got people packed onto tiny little boats on a very long, arduous journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if people don't drown, it's not safe. And
we would never put an Australian on one of these boats.
So even if nobody drowns, it's
it's still
by
a
no
problem.
means a safe way of transport. And like, then you're definitely going to be looking up to set a model of what might be a better method, or as to how we would go about stopping the boat.
Because you can look at essentially deterrence, trying to discourage the boats from coming to Australia altogether. You can look at actually physically trying to create other alternative methods of transport.
Yeah.
And you can also...
I would definitely say a key one for me is going to be putting our resources into tackling the problem at the source.
Yeah.
So obviously the difficulty in processing at refugee camps.
Well, basically, if you're the affirmative and you've convinced that there is a problem with these boats, like the adjudicator's convinced he's happy, like, okay, boats are a problem, we need to stop these things. You still need to offer, like, in your model, an alternative, another way to deal with these people, because if, these people are not going to give up on coming to Australia if boats aren't an option. You need to explain, like, why boats, how you're going to make boats not an option, and then how you're going to make a better option. So, I think there are a couple of arguments you can run on this. One is what the Australian government is kind of running with at the moment is to get rid of, like, pull factors. So this is running on the assumption that largely one of the reasons why people embark on such dangerous journeys is because Australia is such an attractive place to come. You're processed on shore, you've got a very good chance of getting in, and the strategy the government at the moment is taking is kind of this: let's put them offshore.
And obviously, what this is trying to deter is not asylum seeking altogether, but the less than legal methods of asylum seeking.
But one of the problems again with this argument, like I don't think there's anything especially wrong with the offshore processing argument, but it's very easy to say that even if Australia does act tough and say you're not coming to Australia, you're going to come to Nauru, you're going to come to Malaysia, the product which these people are still trying to sell is still kind of attractive, because these offshore processing centres, while they sound terrible to us, you've got to remember the people who are coming to Australia seeking asylum on these boats are from Indonesia and from Afghanistan, from war-torn and very, very terrible conditions, where a detention centre honestly isn't the worst.
And it's enough of a deterrent already. If you look at, on average, in detention centres in Australia, a resident will spend about 200 days being processed, as opposed to 2 days in Canada or about a week in the US. So clearly the situation back home is more desperate than the situation of being placed in a detention centre in Australia.
The reason for the boats isn't that we're switched to onshore processing. You can very realistically say that the reason which more people coming by boat is because people are aware that the success rate is higher now. And that if you then say we're going to go back to offshore processing, that not everybody's going to say, "Whoa, I don't want these boat tickets." They're saying, "Well, that's okay, because even if it doesn't we can't see outside the four walls anyway. Even if we get a view of the town of Villawood or a view of Nauru, in around the same amount of time, we still get into Australia." So you can quite easily, from the negative side, just say, even if you use offshore processing, it's not going to work. People are still going to come by boat just like they would. You can very easily run the argument. Also, there was talking earlier about the group of people who can't come by plane or any other method are always going to come by boat. So you're always going to have some people coming by boat. The other people who are trying to deter offshore processing won't be deterred anyway. And you can very well pick apart the affirmative team's argument just like that by saying, so you could run a sort of argument where in order to discourage the boats, you actually provide these people with alternative means of transportation. Boat people, largely, are not the highest numbers of refugees coming to Australia. A lot come by plane and just arrive at the airport with no passport, no identification, saying, "Oh, listen, I'm seeking asylum," which is as long as they are seeking asylum, and that's a legitimate way. So you need to you could find a way of trying to encourage these people from, instead of embarking on boats, to be in the refugee camps, to wait in the refugee camps in their own countries, and to try and emigrate legally, or to at least fly by plane where it's safer. I mean, one of the things which we've got to understand is why people are taking the boats in the first place. It could be very misunderstood in the debate. What we think why people are taking these boats, and we feel like it's pretty solid, is that at the moment the methods of getting to Australia legally are insufficient. That the refugee camps in these countries are not doing their jobs up to the demands of the amount of refugees which are coming in, and because the ticket to Australia via boat seems to be a faster way to get into Australia and to start your new life in Australia.
Yeah, we should definitely be attacking the issue at the source instead of constantly having to put our resources into at-sea rescues when people have taken that risk. These resources would be better funneled into improving the system at refugee camps. When people have when people are constantly seeking asylum status from a particular region. Then obviously, you don't want to come in heavy-handed and take over, or we're not suggesting that we send in troops to overtake the government or anything like that.
Indonesia.
But I'm
like
just saying that instead of one person waiting there for 3 weeks and one person who has a higher political status,
exactly.
getting straight on the first plane.
So we need to set up better standards of refugee camps where these people can be processed fairly and duly and actually come to Australia as people legally seeking asylum. On the other side, you've got to talk about neg as well. Why shouldn't we stop the votes? Well, the other side of politics really supporting this move is the Greens at the moment, who are preoccupied with the group of people who come without identification and don't come via plane because they can't. And these are the people, you might be talking about Tamils, the people who are literally being hunted in the areas which they come from. So they need to flee, in essence. They can't afford to rock up at an airport and show a passport because they'll be arrested. And don't get me wrong, these people exist, but as far as I'm concerned, they're not strength in numbers is not them. The amount of everybody, not every person who comes on a boat is a Tamil fleeing persecution. A lot of the people are just people who are honestly just seeking refugee status.
So we headed to UOW Week to talk to some of our new students and our future students and our current students.
We're going to see what the man on the street thinks about this.
I think everyone has an inalienable right to pursue happiness.
No, we should pay for a plane.
They're not coming over here to cause trouble, they're getting away from trouble in their own countries.
I think we've got to look into it carefully because there could very well be criminals sneaking on, but not all of them are.
I think that it's important that we accept people who need help in escaping bad situations in other countries into Australia, but that boats are not the best way for them to get here.
They're human beings, I don't see the problem.
So I think we should stop the boats or try and get the people to our country in a safer way. I think we should stop the boats, but I don't think we should stop the people coming to our country from wanting a better life.
So we've asked the man on the street, we've seen all the arguments for or against, we've had pretty lengthy discussions, some of which you didn't even see. But really, at the end of the day, what are we?
It's a miracle of editing.
Are we AF or are we on the fence? I'm on the fence.
I think I'm pretty on the fence on this issue.
Yeah, the reason is that we recognise that the AF has a lot of choice in this argument, and that the neg definitely has to be very reactive. But there are enough obvious flaws in each of the ways the AF can attack this that it's going to come down to just which team debates are better, and I think that's what would make this a really good debate.
Definitely. Thanks for being with us. If you're not so much into serious news topics, if you're a bit less politically inclined, then you can always have a vote on our Facebook page over our less contentious topic of the week.
Why so serious? Our not so serious topic of the week is, does Gotham City need Batman? Please head to our Facebook page and vote and comment.
Or he'll die.
Okay, so check out the links below. You can contact us at our email address, or if you've been living under a rock, or if you are on Facebook, then please head to our Facebook page or search UOWSwords.
There'll be a vote up there. We want to know if you're AF on the fence or...
Yeah, we definitely, if we've missed anything, or if you would attack this from a different perspective, or if you have in fact already had this debate, whether
we want to hear what you think.
Yeah, we want to hear how it turned out.
How did you win? Yeah, whilst we spent a lot of time discussing this today, we recognise that we might have missed something. We can't cover everything. So here's the challenge: if you can blow us out of the water with something completely just show us how much of an idiot we are. We've got a goodie coming for you. We'll post a little video on our next show.
And please prove us wrong, because let's just say that what we have for you involves humiliating footage of Ben, and I would love to see it come to air. The topic of humiliating Ben, and now we come to the part of the show where Ben is replaced by a sponsor reel. So until a few weeks' time, we've been Swords. Thanks for watching On the Fence. I'm Kelly.
I'm Mouse.
And until next time,
stay sharp.